Don Lemon got fired again already. He fired before he really got hired. It's very, very hard for Don Lemon to keep a job.
You have lemons make lemonade, but not on Twitter. Former CNN host Don Lemon just got X'd on X.
Okay, so let's talk about Don Lemon's firing on X. Now, for those of you who don't know, Don Lemon has been working for Elon Musk and X for the past couple of months. Here is Don Lemon explaining it.
What happened, really, look, I would say that is, that's a good question for Elon Musk, because he knows who Don Lemon is. Mm-hmm. He knew who I was. He asked me to come on the platform. He offered incentives and money. They agreed to a deal. They flew me out to Las Vegas to announce this at CES. They trotted me out in front of clients, in front of advertisers. I went to the Twitter offices to do client meetings and to try to entice advertisers back to the platform. So I was a good soldier. I was doing my job.
Now, also in his interview on The View, he actually gave details of what the contract entailed.
There are people out there saying, you shouldn't, he was your boss. First of all, he's not my boss.
Right.
I didn't work for X. They had no editorial control over my show. They were a distribution partner. It was not an X show. Everyone thought it was an X show.
Right.
They only had exclusive content, just a couple of, episodes, 3 episodes a week, but like 10 minutes on top of that for 10 times a month. They had exclusive content that was, to be exclusive to them for 24 hours, and it was going to go everywhere. My show was always going to go everywhere.
Now, Don Lemon's first interview was going to be with Elon Musk. Well, as a matter of fact, it was with Elon Musk, and it happened to be his last interview under that deal. So he has his interview, he does it with Musk, and then all hell breaks loose.
Hi, everyone. Elon Musk is mad at me, and I just put out a statement about what happened between him, me, and the interview that he is apparently so upset about. But make no mistake about this. This is going to be my first episode of the Don Lemon Show this coming Monday, March 18th, so make sure you tune in. This does not change anything about the show except for my relationship with Elon and X. And there's a whole lot that went down, and I'm going to tell you about in the coming days. I know, though, that many of you were not happy that I was doing this in the first place, and you told me so. I just want you to know that I did this deal because not only do I believe in free speech, but I believed that this was the best possible chance for the work that I'm doing to reach the largest amount of people. So speaking of free speech, right, I thought the first person interview, no brainer, Elon Musk, the man who calls himself a free speech absolutist. I asked him to do it. He willingly agreed to the interview. Throughout our conversation, I kept reiterating to him that although it was tense at times, I thought it was good for people to see and hear our exchange and that they would learn from our conversation, learn more about him, learn more about me. But apparently, free speech absolutism doesn't apply when it comes to questions about him from people like me. What did we talk about? Why is he so upset? Does he even have a reason to be upset? Make sure you watch it on Monday on YouTube and everywhere you listen to podcasts, and you can decide for yourself. You can even watch it on X because I'm still going to post it there.
So then I thought to myself, well, wow, how bad could this interview had been that Elon would fire Don Lemon? Because don't forget, Elon is Mr. Free Speech. Then I watched parts of the interview, and after watching some of these clips, I said to myself, I would have fired him too, because the guy is an idiot. Now, I'm going to show you a clip from the interview, and it's about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, before we get into the interview, let me give you this quick overview of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, so here is the dictionary definition of DEI. A conceptual framework that promotes the fair treatment and full participation of all people, especially in the workplace, including populations who have historically been underrepresented or subject to discrimination because of their background, identity, disability, etc. Now, there are a couple of examples of this, but one of the more famous ones is the Supreme Court's ruling on affirmative action recently. So the goal of universities and colleges were to diversify their student body. Now, the way in which they did it was using race as one of the factors critical to a student's admission. Now, what ended up happening is that Asian students who were overrepresented in a population of college students were getting denied admission to schools of their choice simply because of their race. Now, you can also accomplish diversity in another way. As an example, the U.S. Army wanted more women soldiers, but the mandatory fitness test was too hard and half the women who were taking the test failed. So what did the Army do? They scrapped the test, lowering the standards, all in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We wanted more women to become soldiers. Now, obviously, both of these methods of trying to improve diversity, equity, inclusion have their issues. In the first instance, if you're denying people opportunities based on their race, with the college admissions piece, it was because they were Asian. That's wrong. But on the other hand, if you're lowering your standards just for diversity, that can lead to disaster. Would you want your surgeon to be someone who didn't meet the minimal standards? Now, Elon Musk has not argued against diversity, but lowering standards to achieve diversity. And Don Lemon in this clip is going to challenge him on that point.
I believe that if we lower the standards for what it takes to become a doctor.
But you're saying if we lower the standards,
Yes.
but do you believe people are dying because the standards are being lowered?
I don't
Or have
think
been
that is
lowered?
yet an issue, but it could become an issue.
Okay.
So as you can see, Elon says that, hey, it may not be an issue right now, but it can become an issue if you start lowering standards to achieve diversity. Now, listen to how Don Lemon responds to this.
But the actual evidence in history shows the exact opposite. If you look at how minorities are treated by the medical system, most doctors now are white. And there are lots of mistakes in medicine. So you're saying that white doctors have bad medical care? I'm trying to understand your logic here when it comes to DEI, because there's no actual evidence of what you're saying.
Now, this is why they call Don Lemon the dumbest man in television, because it's not about who the doctor is, what the doctor looks like. It's about lowering the standards to become a doctor. So if that person is white, black, orange, it doesn't matter. The argument that Elon's making is that you shouldn't lower the standards to achieve diversity.
No, I said, so if the standards, like let's say, I think that particular thing was referring to surgeons. Let's say a surgeon is asked to, a surgeon in training is asked to do a series of operations under the supervision of a senior surgeon, and they get a bunch of those operations wrong. If that happens, and yet they are still approved to be a surgeon, the probability that someone will die, I think, at some point is high.
Okay, I understand that, but that's a hypothetical. That doesn't mean it's happening.
This again is why they call him the dumbest man in television. He just already said, I don't think this is happening now, but we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where it does start happening. So Elon again says it's not about the person, it's about the standards, and keep the standards high. And Don Lemon says there's no evidence it's happening now. There wouldn't be any evidence because Elon just told you that this was something that they wanted to prevent from happening in the future.
I didn't say it's happening.
You didn't say it was happening.
I said it will.
But
I said if we lower standards, people will die.
All right. Maybe it's me, people. I just don't know how Don Lemon doesn't understand it. Let me give you an example. Back in 2017, it was illegal for women to drive in Saudi Arabia. It was always illegal. They were, I think, the last country in the world that allowed women to drive. Then in 2018, they said, you know what, we're going to allow women to drive. But now, what if Saudi Arabia said, you know what, we're going to lower the standards because since we didn't allow women to drive ever, and now we're doing it, we're going to lower the standards and allow women to get their licenses. You know what, you don't got to take the road test. You just have to take the written test. So you actually don't have to show us that you know how to drive the car. We'll waive that because of all the past discrimination. Is it more likely than not that now you have all those new licensed drivers on the road that someone could get hurt because the new drivers don't meet those minimal standards? The minimal standards aren't racist. It's generally there to protect people in these industries. If you're a doctor, there are minimal standards so people won't get hurt, or it'll be less likely that those people get hurt, especially if those candidates meet the minimal standards. So I don't think Don Lemon understands that. He's essentially advocating for give them all licenses. Don't let them take any of the tests. And Elon is saying, no, they should take the test so we can know they know how to drive.
But why respond to something or put something out there that has not happened? Because I could say,
Because I don't want it to happen. I think we don't want to lower those standards.
okay, if you look at the history of the medical industry, especially when it comes to Black Americans, it shows the exact opposite. If you look at the Tuskegee experiment and on, only 5% of doctors in America are Black.
At this point, I don't think Don is even listening to what Elon is saying. I think Don is there to try to push some type of agenda for his show and for his brand. It doesn't seem like he's even listening to the responses. And just like what I just said about Saudi Arabia, the history of Saudi Arabia, no women were allowed to drive. Now you allow women to drive. That doesn't mean you don't have them take the tests. That doesn't mean you don't have them take the road test, right? They have to meet the minimal standards or people get hurt. So what Don Lemon is saying in response is nonsense. Again, that's why I call him the dumbest man in TV. He's not listening to the conversation. He's out there trying to push a narrative and not listening to what's actually being said.
All of them are white. So are you saying that if the majority of doctors are white, are you saying that and there are still these inequities, right? And there's still mistakes. Are you blaming DEI for that?
No, I'm very basically saying that if we lower standards for what it takes to become a board-certified surgeon or, an oncologist or something where the kind of disease we're talking about, if you make a mistake, causes someone to die, then more people will die than if we don't lower the standards. Therefore, we should not lower the standards.
But why do you think they're lowering the standards for minority doctors or women doctors or?
That's what that's what that article suggested. Yes, at Duke University.
Okay.
Now, I think Elon is right. If you lower the standards, it could lead to disasters. Now, I have to criticize Elon because he says this is happening in the future, but it's actually happening in the present moment. For instance, in Washington State, the Washington State Supreme Court has ruled that the bar exam is no longer a requirement to practice law, cites impact on marginalized groups. Now, the reason why they're doing this is because they believe that there's a disproportionate impact on examinees of color and first-generation examinees. So, by lowering the standard, they hope to get more diversity in the legal profession in Washington. So, Elon would say by lowering the standard, you put people in jeopardy, people who depend on lawyers being competent at a minimal standard. Now, at the end of the day, who do you agree with? Do you agree with Elon? Do you agree with Don Lemon? What am I missing? As always, tell me where I'm in the comment section. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.